action up here. We got the taquitos rocking. We got Sono Burger coming up at 9. We're about to start a panel Q&A on cultivation. This is a new little segment we're just calling Igniting Insights. We want to talk to the commercial cultivators about challenges, opportunities, and how we can solve them together. There's not enough talk about the shit that we're failing on. We want to create a safe space for that. I know we're dealing with problems. Everyone's dealing with problems. In commercial cultivation, you got to be a problem solver. That's why we're here. That's why we're trying to level up together. So I'm going to be encouraging anybody that might have any questions from the commercial cultivation side to come on up. If you have any questions, start off some topics. I've got a couple, but I figured I'd just open up the mic to anybody that has any current opportunities that they would like to bring up. Maybe we can try to solve them together, share some best practices. And if not, let me go ahead and crack the seal. Well, first off, my name's Sergio Bacazzo. We started the CoNNect community about, I don't know, early 2021, somewhere around there. And we had a little brewery around the corner called Big Sexy, where, shout out to the Synganic boys, I think I saw you guys around here somewhere. We just kept talking about cool shit and the challenges that we were going through. A lot of those things actually evolved into product solutions with supplier partners that were paying attention to us. So they helped us solve these problems. That's what the CoNNect started evolving into, where there was more structure, there was more discussion, there's more topics. We've been through a lot of different crop steering discussions, IPM. We just had a really good discussion on organics and terps. Evolution, guys. That's why we're here tonight. We're evolving as an industry. We're evolving as a community. And most importantly, we're trying to level up together, because it's all about what? Quality. It's not about THC potency. Fuck that noise. That's not why we're here. We're just trying to grow heat. So I want to call attention to somebody here, Mr. Kevin Crouch. Kevin, I'd love to pick your brain on something here. Where you at, bud? Round of applause for Kevin Crouch. Come on through, Kevin. All right, Kev. Welcome to the stage, bro. Grab a mic. I would love to talk to you about a couple things that we've been recently. Yeah, come on up, Derek. Get your Derek Formoso, PLANTA. Welcome to the stage, Derek. Grab a mic, bro. Get comfy. So, Kev, let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges of taking on a new facility, taking on a new environment. Tell me about some of those things that you're dealing with. Let's just talk about it. Humidity swings.
Yeah. So when you get a facility, new facility thrown at you, you really have to monitor the climate, see what you're up against, and and really go back to what you know. Take a step back, reflect, and see where it's at. And every day monitor, and from there you can build. It's like the current facility. Right. Started day 1, got plants day 2. Not familiar with the facility at all. So you kind of have to build as you go. And so it takes a lot of time investing, looking at charts and graphs, and from there you just you got to do your best, but it's still
it's a daily challenge, because you're checking your sensors. Yes, you're looking at your graphs. You're calibrating your sensors, right? How many times have you had to go back and recalibrate your sensors, knowing that you might be getting some misinformation?
When you got to anticipate the worst, because you haven't been there long enough to really know. So you don't know what tomorrow's going to hold. So you kind of have to be ready for those fluctuations. And when it comes to plant, you want to build that resistance in the plant. So any sort of defense primers, anything to help help build that immunity in the plant. So whether it be an organic approach, your foliars. You don't know if you're going to have a swing tomorrow. So if you're going to have a swing tomorrow, then you better be prepared and have that plant be ready for that.
I want to unpack that a little bit, because building up the immunity in the plant, this is where the whole term Synganic comes into play, right? We're hydro growers, we're growing with salts, but you're building up that plant immunity using biostimulants. And my mind was blown when I realized that you were including biostimulants through your drippers on a 1400 light double stack LED in Rockwool. That was just mind blown. And Derek, I know you know what we're talking about here, bro, because you're rocking, shoot, what, over 3,600 lights, 3,000 of those being LED. Talk to us about that, man.
All 3,600 are actually LED. But yeah, when you said running organics through a dripper, that my heart just stopped because I was like, you're gonna have build up.
There you go. Yeah, right here to your chin.
Oh, yep.
That's
right
perfect.
there? Okay, yeah. So like build up, anything like that. But yeah, for me, I mean, I only run salts through my drippers. If we need to add anything, we'll do a top feed if necessary. But ideally, just a well-balanced nutrient line, in my opinion, on a commercial scale with Rockwool is a formulation for success, for sure.
Ooh, and you touched on something there too, right? A well-balanced nutrient line.
Yes.
Right. So with a commercial line, right, you're gonna deal with some variables that may run into some challenges, which is why you probably stick with your certain nutrient program, because there's not a lot of changes in variables. What if that nutrient company changed a raw material source or something changed out there, and you're running into a variable that you just haven't come across?
Yeah, that's definitely an issue. So you should use a line that has a good line on their nutrients, right? So with like Athena, right? In the beginning of the pandemic, I know a lot of people had issues with sourcing materials and stuff like that. I've spoken with JJ and a lot of people at Athena like over the years, and they have a 5-year supply of their current batches, right? So using a line that can guarantee that is very, because you can get calcium nitrate for, either $1 or 10 cents a gram, or fucking up to a couple dollars a gram, right? Like how well are those inputs, or how good are the inputs, right? And how stable are they?
Stability is key. And Kev, I want to bring this one back to you, because building up that immunity when you do run across something that might be a little unstable, including your environment, right? So as you're building up that trace mineral count in your plant, you're getting it healthier to fight some of these battles, right? I didn't really know much about what the HYSHIELD was, which is the Chitosan. And until you really explain what it does to the plant, right, it's triggering that response to, I'll let you explain that. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's a defense primer. So it basically triggers a response in the plant that was going to be attacked. And so it sends its immunity boosting properties to the leaf and boosts cell walls and prepares for that. Both cell walls, roots, the whole plant as a whole. So depending on what you're trying to fight, you obviously you have humidity swings, you have bug outbreaks, you have whatever problems you may have in a room. Having that little bit of extra protection is going to be real useful.
So is that like a potassium silicate, or?
No, potassium silicate, a silica source, actually gets into the cell walls and will thicken it, and produce a little, protect it from bugs and PM, things like that. No, it's more of it's a response, almost as though if the plant was on antibiotics in a sense. Okay. So it's little less likely to be impacted by any sort of attack or immunity reducing property or thing,
So that's going to help the cellular wall of the plant, so that it doesn't get PM, it doesn't get botrytis, right? So including some of these product lines that are solutions, right? If you know that you're having environmental issues in like week 3, 4, 5, you should probably start looking at some sort of a preventative, right? I think that's what you just touched on. You're giving it its vitamins, basically, right? So you're giving it a good, healthy structure so that it's not going to be prone to getting PM or botrytis throughout that ripening phase.
Yeah, exactly. Like taking zinc, or something like that when, in the winter if you're afraid of getting sick, exactly.
Right. Let's go back to terps and quality, right? Because at a commercial scale, yes, we have to focus on quality, right? There's work, and then there's work packs, and then we start talking about how do you get your work inside of the retail store, and how do you not create Uh-oh. Thank you, Matt.
All good.
We're good.
It didn't break.
It did not break. That's a great TV right there. Sure. Thank you, guys. So terps, right? We're talking about quality here. So one of the themes for tonight's panel is how do you sell at the consumer level, not based on THC potency, right? We just talked about quality. So I would love to get your guys' perspective on, from a cultivator's perspective, how do you sell on quality?
How do you sell on quality, or how do you achieve quality?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Let's start on the first one.
So selling on quality is, to me, as a brand owner, like that's why I do this, right? Like I want to produce the highest quality product and at the best price point for our consumers. But really it's just educating the bud tenders, educating everyone really, because at the end of the day, right now, California is still very immature market, right? Where everything is just based off THC percent. Like, probably heard it a million times, but like who goes in and asks for 100 proof vodka at the liquor store, right? So really just having more events like this, having more BAs in the stores and educating the consumer a little bit more. That's pretty much how I think we can sell on quality better, is getting the people on the front line selling quality, right?
Exactly, and that's why we're here tonight, guys. We're keeping the event open till midnight because we want to make time for our retail partners to come through. The front line is not getting off work till 9, 10 o'clock, so we encourage you, bud tenders. We will be doing these CoNNect after hours events more regularly. We want you to be a part of these discussions. We understand what quality is. We're striving to compete as competitors in cultivation, to strive to get better quality. So ultimately, that's the best part about cultivations, right? Everybody has their own recipe, their own chef's touch. Yep. And I think that's really where when you start to look at how we sell quality to somebody, like we can talk about quality all day long just by sharing each other's packs, or I can walk in your room and tell you that this shit's fire. Yeah. But at the same time, not everybody has the opportunity to walk into a farm and experience that with us, right? So how do we impart that onto our front line, onto our bud tender partners, and really give them that confidence to talk about what we're putting in their bags?
Yeah, I mean, kind of just like I said, either getting it into the store, because everyone can't come to the grow, right? Like I would have a heart attack if I had everyone come to my grow. But producing it, getting it into the hands of the bud tenders, doing events like this, also creating content so that, maybe doing grow tours virtually, right? So that we can put this up on TVs and have people see ooh, there goes a light.
Nice
hands, Tony.
Hell yeah. Oh, is that OBJ over there with the catch? I see you, big dog.
Well done.
But yeah, as far as that is just, getting it out to the people, whether it be digitally.
That's pretty fucking gnarly.
Where did this wind come from?
I know.
Last month it was fires. This month it's wind. Next month it's tornadoes, locusts,
Hurricane.
Global warming is not a thing. So Kevin, let's hear about you, man. Like, what is your perception of quality?
So let me back up. Say 12 years. If you looked at test results 12 years ago, I grew strains, Marijuana, Green Ribbon, all those, and the early days of getting tests, Steep Hill, all the logo, SC Labs was around back then, and you were lucky to get 24%. And I know genetics have changed a lot, but still those packs were fire back then. And so I think it's kind of an inflated number. I can't say that the weed is that much better nowadays at a 36, 38. So terpenes back then were great. So I think you have to step away from the THC content and look at the terpenes and the smell and what it does to your body, which everybody's different. So you can't necessarily, one strain's going to react differently. The entourage effect, we all know that. But the biggest part of that is the terpenes and the other cannabinoids in the plant. So it's just not about THC. So it's about boosting those terpenes.
Yeah, exactly like you said, like the entourage effect, right? Like you could smoke a 99% distillate cart and you're going to have a very flat high, right? But if you smoke a 22%, Skittles, you're going to have the greatest high, It's all about the cannabinoids and the terpenes together, mixing with the THC. But yeah, getting the public educated enough to know that is the battle that we really need to have, right? Is getting the people in the stores, the bud tenders, everybody But when clients come in, all they want is, what's the highest THC percentage? What's the highest THC percentage? You see that, like, especially if you go to like any of the other states, like you go to Las Vegas, you walk into a dispensary, all these people from all across the country are in there, and they're saying, what's the highest percentage? What's the highest percentage? So it's really about educating consumers and getting that message out there, because you're 100% correct.
Well, to piggyback on the Las Vegas market, that fascinated me because they price their weed based off the highest THC percentage. That is their top shelf, regardless of the way it smells or smokes. It's sad, right? It's training them to shop that way. But
well, not only that too, but if you don't have, you can't open the jar and you can't smell it.
Exactly.
And so, it could be 38%, but it has no nose. And so at least, with terpene levels, if that's on the label, you're like, oh, it's 28, but has a 3%, or you can at least have an idea maybe that's a little more to it than just one-dimensional weed.
I couldn't agree more, man. And so we keep talking about getting more education to the bud tenders, more consumer education. I'm still stumped. Like, how do we do that? Like, yeah, we can do these once a month, but how do we get the message out there? How do we really involve our bud tenders, our buyers, our retail partners that can be I guess on the same mindset that we can train or we can educate only so far? What are some of these things? If you had a magic wand, like how do we educate quality a little bit deeper?
If I had a magic wand, I would just say poof. No, but yeah, I mean, just being active in the stores, having good BA teams. I mean, there's not much you can do to educate all of California, right? Let alone all of the United States and all of the world. So doing this, being active on your social media platforms, and trying to push quality over THC percentage, and overall quality, and really just explaining like the entourage effect, things like that.
I think Nate from Bell Costa did a great job a couple years ago of coining the ensemble effect, which really focused on the terpene to cannabinoid ratio. The lower that ratio is, the higher ensemble effect you're going to get, right? So how do you get higher terps? Well, you start talking about biostimulants and healthy plants with a clean nutrient program, and you start looking at these variables. And this, Kev, I think when we were touching on this earlier this afternoon, you were mentioning, like, hey, how do we showcase and highlight the people that have terps above 2.5%? Rather than that 30% plus THC, let's start repping the brands that are putting out 2.5% plus terpene levels.
I think really getting the bud tenders, dispensaries in touch with the growers that are doing that, and obviously the growers have to be, willing to educate, and share, hey, this is what it takes to get here, or say, hey, you might see a lot of 1.4s, 1.5%, and well, maybe they're not doing this, or or it could be genetics. There's other factors in there, but educating sometimes it takes a little bit more to get those terpene levels higher than just buying random, low. No, I wouldn't say low grade, random cheaper eighths, or whatever it may be.
Which there's a market for that stuff too, right? But as we start to continue to learn and educate and grow higher, right, our cost per pound is not going down when we start focusing on better quality.
As quality goes up, the cost per pound to grow goes up. There's no way around it, right? You're using higher quality inputs. You're, retrofitting your grow into something newer, right? More automation, more, the more bells and whistles go with it, the price goes up, right? But that, in the end, equals better cannabis, right? The more time that you can, I can automate my feeding or do this or automate everything else, the more time me as a cultivator, I get to be in the room with the plants. And that's really what matters, right? You could have a fully automated everything. You can, look at Arroyo all day, but if you're not in the room and you're not putting your hands on the plants, you're not going to get good cannabis.
Couldn't agree more. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, and talking about, getting in touch with the bud tenders and explaining terpene level and explaining the level of the level of dedication it takes to raise those. In some ways, working, it takes a lot of extra work, especially in a big facility, to elevate those up above normal amounts. But when it comes to biostimulants and organic inputs, there's other benefits to those too. You're not just getting higher terpenes, you're getting immunity building, resistance to fusarium and pythium. So there's really other things that play a factor, not just the end product. It's the health of the product and the health of the plant. So something like that, it's also educating growers too, because there's more to it than NPK. Right. So there's other factors in there that help the immune system and just general health. And it's really not that difficult, especially products that are more bioavailable and more refined. You just have to choose the right products.
How are you guys dealing with like biofilm and stuff if you're running it through your drippers?
Really great SOPs, both mid-cycle and post-harvest. So it's not a problem. I've never had a problem with biofilm creating any clogged emitters. Typically, the biggest issue I've ever had with clogged emitters was actually more of an issue with salts. It was issues with pH down, pH up, and
You're
fallout.
having nutrient fallout, stuff
Exactly.
like that. Yeah.
But the actual biological products causing issues has been very minimal. But I would say before anybody tries it, well, first of all, if you're going to try it on a small scale. Don't just dive in, because you do need to have the right program, and there's definitely tips and tricks that can help you clear out that biofilm.
I've got two awesome approaches that have worked. One's sterile and one's not, right? So you can go the clean sterile route with hypochlorous acid, but if you're doing that, then you're killing off any microbes that you might be forming in your root zone. So what do you do if you have a biostimulant program going on? Well, that's where a solution like HYClean comes into play. That is not chlorinated. It's really actually oxygenating that line while descaling all your emitters. So you can still keep your microbial life form alive, and it's been working great.
It'll definitely help especially nutrient fallout, or especially, say if you're running a weekly inoculant program and with a high EC, you're still going to potentially have, nutrient fallout, and so it'll prevent that, and you can still run both programs simultaneously.
I would love to pick Mr. Alex Miami Mango's brain for a moment, sir, if I can. I have a couple questions for you. So, you run a lot of R&D, Alex, and I'm curious, man, like the environment, right? Let's talk a little bit about the environment and some of the things that you're doing to control the environment. I'd love to pick your brain on that. Come on up, bud. Come on. Round of applause, Mr. Alex Villegas, Mango.
Oh man, I'll go get you.
Thank you, bro.
What up, kid? What's going on? What up? What's happening? What you got for me?
All right, so environmental challenges, all right. As you start to include more inner canopy, more side lighting, a lot of cool shit to make the plant grow bigger, right? You're getting more transpiration. Your environment's getting changed as well, right? Your VPD on top of the canopy, your VPD on the bottom of the canopy, or inner canopy VPD, right? What are some of these things that you're working on that you can share with the community that can help control your VPD with these added transpiration rates?
We've seen that too much airflow, actually something we learned at this facility. I always thought airflow was important, and I loaded this space with a ton of fucking fans under the carriage, horizontal, vertical air, and then on top some Patterson fans, high velocity fans. And obviously there's no way we ran them at 100%, but we ran them probably at 60, 70%. And we realized that there is such a thing as too much airflow. Kind of like if you have your t-shirt that's wet and you hang it on a string, and then the air blows through the t-shirt, it dries the t-shirt, but that moisture goes somewhere. So it's the same thing with a million leaves in a room that's tight. As the air is blowing by the leaf, is drying the leaf. So the plant has got to suck up more moisture and it's keep it drier. So you're just releasing out too much moisture into the air. So there's such a thing as too much air. I believe the mathematical equation is 1 meter per second. So I went to Trollmaster and we designed a new fan line because Patterson didn't want to play with me. So we became a competitor. So our new fan line is called Aero Fans by Trollmaster. They're dimmable, down to 1%. They're groupable. They work seamlessly without VFDs with the Hydrex Pro. And you can run them individually, like say under the carriage, they can run kind of fast. Up in on the top of the canopy or up in the ceiling, there's circulation fans, and then the ones that blow on top of the canopy, you can dial them in. If a plant's tall, you don't want that air blowing on top of the bud, drying it out. So then you can dim those, per lane if you wanted to, because we have that capability. So then we learned that a lot of fans, but kind of lower, not so fast. Yeah, just actually brings the humidity down in the space.
Fascinating. So, go ahead, Derek.
I was gonna say, so you have the capability to control top and bottom. Are you guys running those off like DCS-1s or like dry contact stations? How are you guys running that through Trollmaster? I run a lot of Trollmaster.
This is a brand new fan line, and I forget what the kind of the motor that is called. It starts very, very slow. So, for example, if you go to spray mode, if you have LEDs, you can spray your plants at 1% because thinker LED, the lights can go down to 1%. So if you push spray mode, you can preset it to where undercarriage, they can stay at their speed, no big deal, because it's just underneath. Then the vertical air, you can shut those off so the spray doesn't travel. And then once up top, the high velocity fans, you can dim those down or leave them, whatever you want. It depends on the room. You can do whatever you want. You can set it. So then the spray guy, he sprays the room, and let's say that the room takes 30 minutes to spray. After 30 minutes, he just leaves. Back in the old school days, you had to go to the breaker and then pop the breakers or turn the knob, and you'd be going home like, shit, did I turn the fans on?
Spray mode off. Spray mode
Very
off.
true, very true.
Yeah, so you got like, fuck, okay, honey, I'm going to be late for dinner. Put that thing on the warmer because I'm not going to make it for dinner. So,
Got to go back. I forgot the fans.
yeah, I forgot the fans, exactly. So we try to eliminate human error. So after he leaves, let's say it takes 30 minutes, at minute 35, the fans turn back on to their original speed that they were set before. It dries the plants, and then after another 5 or 10 minutes, how big ever the room is, then the lights come back to their original setting, whether it's 85%, 100%, 73%, and it just leaves.
It's got logic built into it. That's great.
Correct. We actually took it a step farther because that was spray mode. That's something that I came up with. So now, how we realized that there's such a thing as too much air is the girls were defoliating, fucking leaves everywhere because there's so much air moving around. So she goes to the head of cultivation. Hey, can you guys turn their fan off because they're not allowed to touch any controllers? So he turned the fans off, and then the girls swept the floor, and they were done. So then he forgot. He gets carried away. We all get carried away. We forget. So he went back to go turn the fans on, and he says, let me look at the charts because we have, everybody got issues with humidity. So I looked at the chart and he goes, humidity went down. Interesting. So he left the fans, I kind of, super low, and then checked it throughout the night. He goes, hey, I want you to come, he calls me and says, I want you to come check out these graphs. He tells me what happened, and I go, interesting. Okay, so that's pretty cool. So I called Ramsey Novani because when he toured my facility one time, he seen how many fans I had, hella fans. He goes, Alex, there's such a thing as too much air. I'm like, fuck no way. Can't have too much air. There's no way. Just blow. But he was right. So I called him up as, hey, you told me that there was such a thing as too much air. Can you do me a favor? Can you point me out where that data was? And then he pointed me out. He gave me a couple of links. And lo and behold, he was right. And we went down that rabbit hole and figured that out. So now we took it to the next level. Hydrex Pro, I told we need not just spray mode, we need defoliation cleanup mode. Where all the fans in the bottom of the carriage shut off for like a half hour, so the girls can go and the girls can go and sweep the room. The girls can go sweep the room and then leave, and then the fans turn back on by themselves and start running because sometimes you are busy and you can't do this stuff, and that's what happens. Something happens that gives you the insight. You know what? This is a great mode or something else to do.
You're baking in fail safes because you know that there's tasks that take a certain amount of time. Let's just put the average task rate at X, and now we can get it done without having to worry about
Did I leave the fans on?
Correct.
And the human error, right? Eliminating all human error. Like running big facilities, that's like one thing that you always have to eliminate, right? Having the SOPs, having that, but you can give someone the best SOP, the best recipe, there's always going to be human error, right? So having those settings in Troll Master is game changing. You know,
So let's touch on the opposite of human error and plants, all right? Herms. I know we all deal with herms, especially when we start talking about the candies, a lot of unstable traits that are coming through the candies. What are some things that you guys can do to prevent herms, or maybe some best practices when you're going through the operation?
I mean, best practices for me is just keeping plants happy and healthy, right? Like having a stable environment, not having huge swings, staying in the VPD zones that where you need to be. Those are best practices, right? When you're stressing, you know, you have to know your genetics too, right? If you're growing an LCG that is known to herm out, I'm not gonna dry it back to 20%. I'm not gonna put it to 1.3 stress VPD, right? I'm gonna cruise it right in the middle. So those are some of the best practices I have always tried to maintain.
Keep it on the balance of just almost pushing, but not so far where it's gonna create some issues.
Exactly, and that just goes down to knowing your genetics, knowing the cultivars that you grow. And that's a lot easier when you're running a monocrop room, right? Which is hard to do right now in this market. A lot of the rooms you have to have multiple genetics because nobody wants to come buy at a distro 4 boxes of one thing, and also having 4 boxes of one thing going into jars, going into dispensaries is a big problem, right? So knowing your genetics, knowing what genetics you're putting in the room together, and then steering that room through environment and through irrigation properly throughout the whole cycle, that's how you're going to avoid those problems, in my opinion.
If you happen to have a genetic that you like and it happens to herm, and you want to run it, regardless, put Garden Clean in the room. Chlorine dioxide.
Okay.
It sterilizes the pollen. How did I find this out? So, I'm Johnny pollen chucker over here. I never pollen chucked in my life. I never did anything. So I got some TK pollen from a guy in Florida. And I went into the room and I shut every fan off. Okay, the day before that, I went to the store and bought a couple of loaves of French bread, right? I took the bag out, you know, I cleaned the bags, and I went to the facility and I grabbed the doctor suit and I shut off every fan in the whole facility, in the whole room. And I got my, you know, I put the bags inside the buds. The bags were on the buds. And I got everything around it wet because I didn't want to pollinate the whole room. You know, my first time that I'm pollinating something. And I took the bags off and I pollinated these branches. And then I put the bag back on. And then I came back to work the next day and everybody's telling me, what the fuck did you do? What did you do? Excuse my language. What did you do? You're gonna pollinate the whole room. I'm like, dude, I did everything as I was being told. And then the next day I went and got everything wet around it. I took the bags off and wetted the stalks or the branches. And we waited and waited and waited and waited. Nothing ever happened. So then I gave a tour to the guy, I forget his name, but Umami Seeds. And
Chasing Harry.
Yes,
Shout
Umami
out.
Seeds. And I told him what happened to me. He goes, you know, here's what I did. He goes, did you have Garden Clean? I go, yes. He goes, I used to breed in tents, and I used to get like, I don't know, 30,000 seeds in a tent. I got like 40 seeds because I ran Procure, which is kind of the same thing. Chlorine dioxide. So I'm like, interesting. Okay, so it sterilizes your pollen. So I called Shamal, which is the owner of Garden Clean, and then he goes, yeah, absolutely. It sterilizes your pollen. So that was something cool.
Fascinating. So if you know that you had an issue, you knew you hit 95 degrees and shit went bad, right? It's a pretty good preventative, just throwing some Garden Clean or
It's
Procure,
another thing that you can use
slow
Garden
release,
Clean in. Yeah.
right? The 30-day slow release typically.
Who knew? Yes, exactly. The slow release. Who knew?
Cool. What about you, Kev?
Yeah, that's a new one. I haven't heard that. That's good. Thank you for that tip.
Game.
As far as preventing herms, you know, I think you touched on it great. You know, it's, you know, happy, healthy plants. That's number one. And, you know, kind of minimizing any swings, VPD swings, even light intensity. You know, you have transitions where, you know, you're at a low light to a high light, you know, whether it be veg to flower. Same with that, you know, kind of making those transitions from veg to flower a little bit more smooth. You know, sometimes grow rooms are completely different. You know, veg and flower operate at different VPDs. There's climate issues in one and not the other. So trying to minimize that and make it as smooth as possible helps. Genetics play a big part in it. There's more stable genetics. A lot of these candies are a little more inbred, so we have issues. So minimizing all that stress and things like the defense primers will help too.
It's one of the things that I recently came across that was like we just couldn't figure out what was going on. These plants were healthy, and then they weren't for like the first week of acclimatization coming in, because we were getting greenhouse teens coming into an indoor facility. So we're like, oh, maybe it's the spectrum of the light, right? Gavita 1700s, 1900s, or 2400s. They all had the similar issue. And we just kept banging our head about whatever the problem might be. We didn't know. The plants were just getting locked out. We had no clue. And then the other day, this just randomly came up. Someone's like, hey, is there a liner in that cocoa bag, that 1 gallon? So we pulled the plant out. We ripped off the liner, and there was no roots penetrating through that liner, that mesh. You know what I'm talking about, right? Yep. So we're like, wait, why is there even a mesh liner in there? Well, it's called the How to Issue with Kayakor. I'm like, hey, dude, why is this thing there? It's just for cosmetics. People don't want cocoa running off on their bench. Like, that's it? Well, what I'm running into is the roots are not being able to penetrate that layer because, again, they were coming from a greenhouse environment. No, this isn't something that they're doing wrong. It's just coming from an environment that built up almost like a barrier, right? The roots, they're calcified. There's a lot of salinity in there, which is also holding about 1.6 EC in that liner. I'm like, oh my God, we're stressing our plants out and they're locking out and they just can't do much. So we're actually going through that right now. We just ripped those liners off in one of the rooms. So tomorrow is gonna be day 3, and we're gonna see what happens if that help get the plants right back up and see what's tracking.
Are you guys pre-flushing all those bags? Because I know that was a huge problem during COVID too, was that everyone that was running cocoa was getting super hot cocoa for some reason, whether it was sourcing or what was happening. But I've seen that drastically since COVID and the pandemic, dealing with everything. I'm sure it was pretty hard getting all the cocoa here.
For sure.
So they're sourcing from different places. So is that something you guys are preemptively flushing those bags down?
We were, because the nutrient regimen coming in from the nursery, it was a little bit higher nitrogen than we'd be more comfortable with. So we flush out initially with at this facility we're running HGV and JR Crop Tech. Right, we're doing a side by side right now, and yeah, we flushed at like 2.6 EC because they were running really low EC because their plants can't transpire, and based on the current climate, the conditions that they had, no problem. So let's just give that first initial water in, like until runoff. But the plants they weren't coming out of it, and that's when we started realizing, oh my God, this liner, it's capturing all this salinity and calcium buildup, and it's just trapping the roots. So now we started having a channeling issue, and I don't know, like that's something that's recent right now. So I'm looking forward to reporting back on this next time, because I think a lot of people may not realize why the hell is their plant unhealthy. Yeah. And it's just look at your medium.
That's the last thing you would think too.
We eliminated every variable. Like we really brought off all of our sprays. We just went back to the basics, the cleanest route we possibly could. And you're right, it's the last place we checked.
This is Murphy's Law. It always happens like that.
Right. But yeah, that's just wanted to share that anecdotal, suggestion that we are just currently going through. But yeah, what other challenges do you guys you think the community would be benefiting from that you might want to bring to the table? I know we touched on environment, we touched on herms, we touched on quality and how to focus on quality and improving with your biostimulants that you could be foliating or inoculating.
I could say I would say pest pressure. Obviously, we all as a growers deal with bugs, and one thing I could add, I've had great success at dipping plants. So something I've employed since for 15 plus years is anytime you touch the plant early stage, you dip it, turn it upside and dip it.
I used to do that at the trap. I haven't done this at this place, but I used to love dipping plants, and I did it in rock wool. So the SOP is that the rock wool would have to slap the top of the dip. In case there was an egg that fell there, and you forgot that one egg, you ensure that you grab it. It's like a quick slap, And then get it out,
Nice.
get it out, and then set it. Yeah. A lot easier to do it with rockwood than with cocoa. I'm sure with cocoa you have
Yeah.
to hold it back, and you really can't hit the top of the cocoa. But yeah.
No, much more difficult. But if you are in Rockwool, or clone cue, standard clone. As soon as they come out of the dome and you're going to transplant a Rockwool or cocoa, dip it. And then if you can dip it one more time, you have a good chance of being, much better chance of being pest free.
Yeah,
Agreed.
definitely. I think, dipping clones, dipping rock wool, you can go pretty aggressive on it too as well, but it's just how you prep it, right? So if you're going to dip that clone or that 4x4, you're going to want to fully saturate that block first so that you do a full dunk on it. Then 2 hours later, you're going to rinse that out so you don't even uptake any of the pesticides, but then you're also going to kill off any bugs.
Yeah, particularly if you are dipping rock wool and just dipping the foliage. Though anytime though you really do an IPM spray, I always tend to want to have it be a wetter media. You don't want those stomatas to uptake any sort of any additional oils or whatever you're spraying with. But yeah, just a 1, 2, 3 dip. A little agitation too, because it's not just putting the plant in the dip, because the actual motion of going up and down or swirling, it pulls it off. So mechanical and chemical killing. And then, as far as something I've also found, everybody, you have say 10 employees, something that really helps is put mixing pumps in your bucket.
Absolutely.
Because you don't want any
Absolutely.
separation of oil in those buckets. So say you're stirring it, you're going cheap, you stir it, somebody may not stir it as well, and then you're going to get some burn.
So I would love to welcome to the stage Nick Burin, founder of Grow World. You just came back from Colombia, and I know that you were visiting some awesome farms there. Welcome to the stage, bro. Welcome. Round of applause for Nick, please. So it was pretty crazy, Nick, because you saw some farms that obviously we're dealing with some mango. Thank you for joining us, bro. Appreciate you. And so farms, IPM, right? Like outdoor, full term, obviously, but in Colombia. Talk to us a little bit about what you noticed that they were doing out there for IPM.
I mean, honestly, a lot of the farms that we visited were sourcing solutions in country, right? They weren't really importing a lot of stuff. So the first episode we just launched was at FolioMed. I would say an extremely low-cost producer, pennies per gram.
Pennies per gram.
Pennies per gram. Mark Ziegler, shout out to the director of cultivation out there, or VP of flower. And he even says in the episode, it's on YouTube right now, you could check it out. It's just called Grow World. That's the first episode. And he was explaining that they really just source local inputs. They have a lot of growers coming from the rose industry, the cut flower industry. So they're using some of those solutions as well. Now, the episode we're launching next Thursday is at PLANTA Global. This is a more sophisticated greenhouse. They definitely invested a lot more in the infrastructure and inputs. So I'd say go watch that episode next Thursday and see a little bit more about their formula. But that's definitely the future. And I think the American market should be looking at Colombia as potential competitors, right? Similar to how roses moved from California down to Colombia. I see a lot of cannabis in the next 10, 20 years making that same leap for large biomass producers.
It's fascinating. A lot of extraction, right? A lot of export gets extracted or goes into topicals or whatever it might be, right? So do you see that there's a bigger trend towards the extraction side with a lot of the material? Because smokable, pretty big difference, right? From an indoor cultivation.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say for the Colombia stuff. I know a lot of people that have gone down there and tried to grow weed. The climate, especially in greenhouses, you're only going to be able to grow probably some of those more South American varieties, stuff that is more land raised towards there. But to touch on what you were saying about some of the IPM that they're using, is any of that even applicable to the California market due to our heavy restrictions on what we're able to use, since they are sourcing everything in country? I was just curious about that.
Yeah, I actually don't have a perfect answer for that at all. I don't know the California regulations as well as you guys do, but I would assume it's a lot stricter up here. Like,
Extremely strict. This is probably the most
Yeah.
heavily regulated crop in the entire industry in the world.
and
right?
overtaxed.
Well, that's a given. Yeah, but you know, it is fascinating because there are some tools that can be used in microdose format to really prevent the real heavy stuff from actually coming out and getting an infestation. So that, I mean, I think that's kind of where you're going down that pathway.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of cool things people are doing, even, you know, with like high pH water, doing sprays and stuff like that. Things like that are very interesting to me, but I was just really trying to see if what they're really using down there in Colombia. I'm sure, you know, pennies per dollar or pennies per gram is easy to get to that level when you're not heavily restricted as we are, right?
You nailed it. The restrictions as well as the land, right? Land and the labor. So specifically the FolioMed episode that you guys can go watch right now on YouTube. It's about 27 minutes long. They're growing in the Andes, right? So they're not using a lot of the same environmental controls, etc. They're, in my opinion, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the high elevation Andes. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're exactly right about the strain hunters, the legacy, you know, strains and some of the, you know, Punto Rojo, Mango Vici, etc. They're crushing down there with the low inputs as well as the labor that has come from the rose industry that knows how to grow plants. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
What are some things that you think we can learn from the Colombian market that you're seeing? That's because they're doing it at scale. They're driving such a low cost of production. Is there anything that you think we can take away from that?
You know, the farms that we filmed, specifically the ones that we, you know, sought out, it's a culture. And I want to give a huge shout out to Kevin over here. You guys share that culture at the Powerhouse. Mark,
Thanks.
yeah, of course. I mean, absolutely beautiful facility as well. You guys are always looking to learn, kind of that philosophy of Kaizen, 1% better every day, every harvest, etc. And they share that down there. The farms that we filmed were humble enough to know that they didn't know everything. And also this first episode with Mark Ziegler and FolioMed, he's from Humboldt, right? He came down there and he didn't try to project the California way of growing. He actually learned from the Colombian way to grow, implemented some, you know, some genetics and some different styles, but it's that innovation culture that I think really separates them. And they actually said it in one of the episodes, because they're all GMP certified, right? Talk about overregulation. Wait till you see these episodes from Colombia. It's insanity of how much regulation they have. To be able to grow and export flower out of Colombia into other markets like a Brazil, Israel, Germany, Australia, they literally, per country, have to change their substrate. Yeah, literally, per cultivar, per country they're exported into, they have to have a very strict SOP that could dictate the substrate, that you can't grow directly into the ground. It's crazy.
Is that they can't grow directly into the ground because they're worried about uptake of any roots or anything that could potentially be transferred over to these other countries?
I would assume so. And again, some countries are stricter than others. I think Israel was extremely strict. I think one of the strictest. And it also depends, you know, how these countries are distributing the products as well. I learned a tremendous amount being a, you know, American gringo up here, coming from Canacribs, going to every top facility in the country, and then just throwing that all to the side and then going down to Colombia to see how they do it. It was, again, I keep saying beautiful. It really was. I'm excited for you guys to see these episodes.
You touched on something Kaizen, the 1% rule. That's something that resonates, you know, lean farming, right? Like, it's, everyone can take a page out of that book, right? Running, you know, the only way that we can get the cost down is by running more efficiently, right? So every day, like you said, this harvest has to go faster and better than the last harvest. Every single aspect of cultivation should be getting better day in and day out, right? Just always honing in on our skills, sharpening our tools. That is how you get more efficient, how you can get your price per pound down, and then effectively, relay that to the market, right?
I just wanted to add something there real quick. Shameless plug. GrowWorld.com is a trial marketplace. I just started this company a year ago after leaving Growers Network and Canna Cribs, and we promote that mindset, right? The side-by-side trials, we were just talking about that today, actually, right? Keeping the controlled variables the same and changing just this one element, right? That is what we promote at GrowWorld. For all of our commercial growers out there, it's free. Join GrowWorld.com, and you can sign up for 3 different lights. You can sign up for 3 different cocos. And seriously, see what product works best in your regimen and go for it. That's what we promote.
And if you haven't done it yet, but if you scan the QR code on the CoNNect Flow page, you can sign up for Grow World right now, and you can get one of these dope-ass Light War shirts that Nick's wearing up at the front. I don't know if there's any left, but that's how you get one of these shirts tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
So I want to open the questions up to the audience. If there's anybody that has anything percolating that they'd like to ask, any curiosity? Anyone at all? Okay. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for the Igniting Insights session. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Oh, we do have a question.
It was really fun.
Name and where you're from, please.
Allie, where am I from? I'm from Yolo County. And how do I get down to Columbia to check out the grows down there?
Hey, Allie. Nice to meet you. I would recommend joining Grow World, messaging the farms directly. We kind of removed the friction in that sense. You could literally message their team directly. And if they're open to it, maybe they can invite you down. We specifically focused on Bogota. And there's no grows like in the city. There's not like there's no warehouse grows, by the way. It's all greenhouse and outdoor. So we went 5 hours north to Tocancipá, Inemocon, a couple towns, kind of mountainous villages. So it's a little bit of a trek. I have a driver for you if if you do make that trek down. But they're very welcoming, extremely warm culture down there. Believe it or not, we felt safe the entire time. It's a common misconception thanks to Netflix and a couple of TV shows, but it was very safe.
Thank you, Allie.
Thank
from
you, Allie.
Preferred Gardens. Any other questions? All right. Round of applause for our panelists up here. Thank you, everybody, for coming out.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Serge.
So that was our first panel of the night. We're going to be coming back at 9:30 p.m. for our Farm to Toke panel discussion. We got the big dog, Freddie Big, in the house from SF Canna and Planta. We got Mindy Galloway from the Pocket Dispensary, also Camilla. We got Ms. Amy Barnes from Mainstage Sacramento, and also Mr. Nick Marin joining us as well. So we'll be back here at 9:30 on this panel. We'll talk to you guys soon. Much love.